Okay, I pushed the face button, so let's get this party started. Okay. Okay, so a quorum's been established.
Yes, there's a quorum, and just a quick reminder for those in the room to make sure you turn your mic on when you speak so that the people in Zoom can hear you. And those that are on Zoom to make sure you turn yourself off and mute yourself so that we don't get your background noise unless you're speaking. When making motions, if you'll just state your name so we can catch that in the minutes on the recording, that would be helpful. Any questions, let us know. You can raise your hand on the app. You can send a chat message. We'll monitor those. And I turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Let's call this meeting to order. Oh, good, see? We were worried, John.
All I can say is Brian Tui's a bad influence. We did lunch beforehand and we didn't quite start walking back. So Brian should be there.
Okay, great.
In fact, it would have been fun if Brian was actually in the room. He just had to grab his stuff.
All right. Let's call this meeting to order. I hope everyone's had a chance to review the agenda. If so, let's get that agenda approved. Can I ask for a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Sally Riley. I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Sally. Do we have a second?
Gail Sertivant, I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Thank you. Agenda is approved. Let's move on to any public comments that we may have. I don't know if we have any, but now's a good time if you have something you want to offer that's not on the agenda. Okay. Apparently John walks faster than Brian. We've now learned. Okay, I hope everyone's had a chance to also. Oh. The Mountain Metro guy making a pit stop. I like the pun. Now let's look. I hope everyone's had a chance to review the meeting minutes from our last meeting. Are there any comments on that? If not, I ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
This is Karen Birchtold. I'd just like to note that I was present at the September meeting.
Okay.
And Dole, this is Sally. I have two questions. Under 6B, there is a sentence that I'm not quite understanding, which says that Mr. John Lasato's transportation director welcomed discussion about the tip and fund lines. I don't know what a fund line is.
Why's everyone looking at me? How am I supposed to know what I said?
We can't hear John.
I'm sorry.
Do you know
Um,
what you said? Because if not, I remember what you said.
Yeah, please.
Right, you were talking about the additional funding that may or may not be coming in the future. So we discussed it, but we weren't going to full-fledged put it onto the table. It's somewhere between $2 and $3 million, but we were not going to discuss it at that time. It was not part of this tip, but you were letting us know that you were going to look into it. And when you knew more, you were going to report back. You remember that at all, Sally?
I remember that. So maybe it just should say discussion about tip and future funding.
And that's fine.
Just didn't know we had fund lines. And then in that same section on the last paragraph, the word should be re-evaluation, powers to Highway 24. It's revaluation. It doesn't have two E's in it. Just a typo.
There's two typos. Okay. Sally, we'll make those revisions. Thanks for that.
Thank
And I think
you.
we're okay to remove that fund line reference and to say future tip funding. Future funding, thank you. Fair enough. Okay, now, can I ask for a motion to get the, oh, yes. Wendy.
So where reevaluation is at, it depends on how old that environmental document is, so it may need reevaluation. And I don't know that, and I don't think Tim's on our call today. So I can't
Gail?
recall the conversation myself, so but it could be reevaluation.
I think Gail might have an answer to this.
It is supposed to be reevaluation, so there already is a NEPA document in place because of the age. Now I have to do reevaluation just to affirm that all the findings and the are still the same and move forward. It's part of the CDOT process.
Okay. All right, thank you for the clarification. So we can confirm it is a reevaluation.
And Dole, since we're also still reviewing this, can we make sure that Woodman is spelled with an E instead of A?
And then
Okay.
it says to,
It's a singular road, so it should be Woodman, right?
and then,
Except in this case, yeah.
and then separate, right after that needs to be spelled correctly too.
Say what?
Separate 5 or 6 words down also needs to be correct.
Yeah, yeah, in that lower section of item 6B, yeah.
Well, I missed that one.
You're slacking, Sally.
You're already retired, right? You just
No.
gonna phone it in, only find 2 or 3 things. You're not gonna have to find everything.
Funny.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments on the meeting minutes? All right, with those, Jessica, I'm hoping that you got she's giving me the thumbs up that she made all the changes. I asked for a motion to approve the amended minutes.
This is Brian. I move approval of the minutes as amended.
Do we have a second?
This is Sally. I'll second it. Sorry, Jason.
Thank you, Sally. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. Show your hands. All right, motion passes. Thank you. Minutes approved. John, you made it just in time for the Board of Directors report. If you would, please, sir.
Thank you. There were 4 action items at the last board meeting on October 13th. One was the greenhouse gas emissions rulemaking letter. The board was very careful in choosing its language. In fact, I've made the quip that it was communities wordsmithing together because it was a little over an hour that they took to make sure that they had the language just right. And that letter was approved and sent. Soon after, CDOT announced that this is more of an aside, but CDOT announced that they had changed the rulemaking and extended the deadline for comments. I don't remember what the new deadline is offhand, Kathleen, if you do. November 18th. So I would encourage everyone to read the revised rulemaking. There's a few items in there that have actually, I have had the chance to read it and is, I think, quite concerning, especially from all of your positions. Right now, the way the rule reads, if you don't make your GHG goals, all of your funding has to then move into mitigation measures. But then this is where, that's not new. You already knew that. But what's concerning is now they've said, when it comes to mitigation measures, system improvements are no longer eligible. So if you were hoping to get federal funds for signal timing, pullouts, intersection improvements, now CDOT the Transportation Commission in their infinite wisdom has said that would no longer be eligible. And while I think they meant that as we didn't want you to count those as mitigation measures for coming to count against greenhouse gas emissions. But the practical upshot of that is they've now, again, if you're not in compliance, will mean that those sorts of activities that are actually things that help improve greenhouse gas emissions will no longer be allowed under federal funding. So again, I think that should be a great concern to most of you. And hopefully PPACG will have another sort of workshop like we did before, talking about the changes and our draft letter, hopefully in the next week and a half or two. So, oh, I'm sorry. See, I went off on a tangent and I forgot where I was supposed to be in the first place. So back to the, oh man, I had the board thing here up and it shut on me, sorry. The other items that the board chatted about was the amendment to the moving forward 2045 plan that was approved. So now we have a approved amendment to the 2045 plan. So more specifically for the city of Colorado Springs, now when you move forward with any of your applications or whatnot in regards to the Peterson Northgate project, you can now say it is included in the region's long-range transportation plan. There were 10 other projects that were included, but that was the original letter sent by City of Colorado Springs. So that is now adopted, and Mark, I think, is already has it already doctored up and looking pretty good. Good job there, Mark. And I believe if it's not on the website, it will be soon. The other actions that they took was the 2327 tip being released for public comment. Again, I want to take a quick second to thank Wendy for all of her efforts in getting that tip document fixed. So it now, not only is it correct, but it actually looks a little prettier. So again, we've got that posted on the website for public comment. Jessica McMillan has already sent out the notice to folks that it's available on our website. I think it was in the paper or soon will be in the paper. And we have a virtual open house scheduled for Monday, the 25th from 11 to 12. And then the in-person open house is on Thursday, the 14th. Is that right? Jessica, are you on the line? Do you happen to can get to it faster than I? All right, so Race, who can find out when the in-person open house here at PPACG is? I know it's in November. It is Thursday, the 4th, 14th, 4th. I was only off by a 1.
At 4 p.m.
Yep, from 4 to 5. So again, if anyone can join us for either the virtual one or the in-person one, it would be very handy, because let's face it, when the public cares enough to actually show up, that usually means they have a question about a specific project. I can bore them to death on federal finance and tip process, but I'm going to probably be pretty weak in answering very specific questions about specific projects. So if you guys can attend, that's always appreciated and helpful. But if you can't, I will always, as normal, take down their question and forward it along to you for anything I can't answer.
So John, if I can interrupt
Sure.
you for a second, will there be like a reservation or anything you have to make to attend? Will the public have to sign up or anything to limit the number of?
No, I believe it's an open Zoom link. Yep. Jessica, you want to go ahead and talk? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, for the in-person one, there is no need to sign up. And for the virtual one, there's also no reason to sign up. You just access the link. And for the in-person one, you just arrive.
Are you going to be sending that information out separately, or not, just so we have it at hand so we can help participate?
Yeah, Jessica, can you give me something, and then then Jess Bechtel can send it out to everybody?
Absolutely.
Would it also be too much to ask to have it set up as a calendar invitation to the?
Yeah, you've crossed the line there, buddy. No, I think that would be fine. Jessica, would you mind?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask too, but I thought.
Well, Gail, apparently I crossed the line for you.
Yeah, no, we'll send out the invitation.
Thank you.
And again, so we've got that out there. And that was pretty much it for the transportation related action items. I will just also mention real quickly that the Tri-County study that Jason O'Brien has been working on also was presented at the board meeting as an information item. And there was a lot of interest from your folks on how that was going. They did seem to sort of focus in on, hey, so you say it's got to be multimodal, but what if we want to talk about roadways? And we assured them we will not openly solicit sort of roadway things, and we're going to not trying to make it a roadway centric sort of plan. But that being said, we will capture any comments regarding roadways or other sort of capacity projects. So we're not limiting it. It is truly multimodal, which means all modes, including roadways. It's just because of our funding, our focus and the sort of effort we're making to sort of tease out specific comments have to do with maintenance and operations, as well as transit and other connectivity sort of issues from a multimodal angle. But again, we're not going to not take any roadway related comments. So that seemed to be one of the sort of things that the board picked up on and really sort of wanted to make sure with Jason that they were okay talking about that. And Jason assured them that would be fine. Wendy, as the not sponsor, but co-manager of the thing with Jason, did I say that somewhat correctly in repeating? For those of you scoring at home, Wendy gave me the thumbs up. And that, Mr. Chair, is a recap with a lot of extra information of what happened at the Board of Directors meeting. Oh, we have a question.
This isn't a question. This is Kathleen Collins from CDOT. I just wanted to let you know that I double checked on the date for the greenhouse gas rulemaking written comments. The new extended deadline is November 18th by noon is with the other stipulation on that date. So November 18th by noon, submit your written comments, and written is the preferred method that we would like to receive. Thanks.
Right. But there are a couple of online virtual meetings, but again, we'll send out all this information to everyone, so you'll have it. And if you want to attend a virtual meeting, you can. But I would really, again, recommend that you read through the new material. And if your jurisdiction has already sent in a letter, because they've amended the rule, you may send in a supplemental letter talking about the additional comments. PPACG will be doing that. Again, because we believe that the rule sort of stepped in the wrong direction, and in our humble opinion, actually makes greenhouse gas worse for the first 5 to 10 years, because it's predicated on the assumption that if you make driving bad enough, people will stop driving. But even if that is true, which again, I don't submit to, even if that is true, it means you have to sort of ratchet up the pain for 5 or 10 years. And in that 5 or 10 years, GHG will actually worsen during that period. So I think that is something that definitely needs to be to the forefront, and that will be part of our comments moving forward. But again, we would encourage all of you to comment on the new rules, regardless if you had already commented or not.
Thanks, John. Also, while you have the microphone, do you want to talk about any staffing changes?
Yeah, new staffing. Oh, hey, everybody. Welcome our new senior planner, Danielle Miller. Danielle, do you want to tell everybody a little about yourself? You hit the little mouthy thing.
This
Yep,
one can?
you're on.
Okay. Hi, I'm Danelle Miller. I've been here for 4 days now. I 3.5. I came here from Tetra Tech, where I have been a planner primarily for federal DoD, FEMA, Department of Energy, those kinds of projects. Prior to Tetra Tech, I was working at HDR, also here in the Springs on a variety of roles, again, primarily DoD. Very excited to be here, excited to be working on projects in the community, and hopefully we'll help serve all of you. And that's all I have to say, unless anybody has questions.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm sorry you have to work with John.
Whoa, 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 where did that come from? Did we answer Victoria's question in the chat? I saw that there was something there. Okay, we did. Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, John, thank you. All right, next up, Will. Let's see what you have to share.
Hello, William Mast, GIS admin and modeling lead for PPACG. I just want to introduce Mr. Jeff Peel from Streetlight Data Services and introduce the TAC to our new Streetlight subscription service, which covers the entire region. So all of our member governments will have access to the Streetlight Data Service. There's no limit on the number of licenses for your staff to use this service or on runs that you can perform. So we're really excited about this. Special thanks really goes out to Colorado Springs and El Paso County. So with Victoria really working hard in El Paso County, and Todd working really hard with the city of Colorado Springs to kind of put this together and come up with the bulk of the funding that covers this annual license. With PPACG using our data acquisition funds that we're going to go towards static traffic counts also into the mix. So this is a fantastic win for our community. Again, it really exemplifies communities working together and everybody in the region benefits. So to give you more detail and overview on the service and next steps to access it and take advantage of this, I'll turn it over to Mr. Jeff Peel and Danny Yoder from Streetlight Data Services.
Will, can I hop in real quick as we get this set up? The question, because I'm familiar with Streetlight, and maybe Jeff, you'll know, are the jurisdictions going to each get a certain number of zones that they're able to utilize? Is our license set up, or we're getting?
Yeah, I'll cover that in more detail. The answer now, though, is you have unlimited zones, unlike a project-based. Yeah, unlike a project-based purchase, which you may have done in the past, or your consultants may have done on your behalf in the past. You have a subscription model, which gives you unlimited number of zones and now unlimited access for your staff for a full year.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for the introduction, Will. Thank you all for having us here virtually. My name is Jeff Peel. I'm the account executive at Streetlight Data. I'm joined by my colleague, Danny Yoder, engagement executive. If you have questions, Danny can help answer those in the chat, and I will make this brief. It's a short 237 slides we'll be going through. No, I'm told I have 15 minutes. So we'll keep it brief, and I will leave plenty of time for questions here. Yeah, thank you for letting us join virtually here. I wish we could be there in person. It's probably, if not the most beautiful places in the country, one of the most beautiful places in the country. And I look forward to coming to visit you all in person at some point throughout your subscription term here. So I don't know how familiar everyone in the room and on the Zoom is with our platform. So I'm going to give a brief high-level overview of who we are and what we do. Talk a little bit about specifically about your subscription, but keep it pretty high level. If there's any specific questions, we'll do our best to answer them in the time allotted, and you'll have our contact information going forward if you have more specific questions. So just a quick overview of Streetlight. Streetlight, we're a software company that leverages the power of big data. I'll talk more about that in a second. Our transportation industry knowledge. So Danny and I both come from New York City DOT. and with a wealth of experience in transit planning and multimodal planning, but we have folks that have worked at state DOTs and NPOs, and a variety of engineering and consulting firms on staff. We pair all that with our advanced data science to provide you on-demand transportation metrics. One of the greatest things about Streetlight is we can deliver our metrics in a suite of analysis tools to any computer with a browser and internet connection without having to go into the field. So this isn't that one centralized hardware on a given computer in a computer lab in one of your office buildings. This isn't because you have unlimited logins. You have all your staff that has access to this from your home office, from your office, out in the field, wherever you need to access it. This proved really critical for our customer bases in the early months of the COVID crisis, but it's certainly useful at any point going forward from that. Our platform allows for access to metrics from a few weeks ago to a few years ago, all at your fingertips. This can dramatically reduce the time of project analysis over your traditional methodology of ATRs and myovision cameras, Bluetooth sensors, and so forth. And this is particularly true on any large, complex project you may be doing, where the cost of those traditional methods adds up pretty quickly. You can now have data in minutes to hours versus weeks to months for those projects. So for those of you working on those bigger undertakings like the greenhouse gas inventory, that's going to prove crucial for you. So how do we do this? Well, every month Streetlight processes over 40 billion, that's billion with a B, anonymized location records from smartphone and in-vehicle GPS navigation devices. Our proprietary data processing engine that we call Root Science transforms those into contextualized, normalized, aggregated multi-mode trips. Streetlight Insight, which is our platform that you'll be logging into, lets you analyze how vehicles, bikes, pedestrians, trucks, bus or rail passengers, and so forth move on virtually every corridor and to or from every census block. So that's all available on the platform. Not all of that is necessarily available in your subscription, but we'll talk more about that in a second. Users can create everything from origin and destination metrics. You can analyze the amount of roadway volume, the amount of roadway speed. You can calculate it by month. You can do select link analysis. One of my favorite tools that we have is you contribute trip and traveler attributes using census data and our assessed home and work locations, and much, much more. So I mentioned big data. So why use big data? Well, the major advantage of the big data approach is the size and representativeness of the sample. So whether you've relied on temporary counts that are subject to daily or seasonal fluctuation, or you've used expensive travel surveys that are plagued by very, very low response rates, especially in communities that are often most affected by those underperforming transportation networks that you want to actually improve. Traditional methods collect some people for a few days or a few locations. Big data gets to capture many people for all the days. This allows you to analyze large swaths of geography, so the whole Pikes Peaks region, or lengthier periods of time. So instead of doing those 2-day or 3-day ATR counts, those turning movement counts, you can look over analysis over a whole year. This allows for a much more representative sample, in our opinion. This is a short list of how customers have used our metrics in the past. A lot of this I know you all are working on today. Things like before and after studies, turning movement counts, AADT, detour planning, transit studies, cut through traffic, and so forth. I'm sincere when I say this is a short list of what folks use our platform for. The list continues to grow. We're excited to have you all on board as a customer and using the platform going forward. And we hope that you can expand this list. We're always looking for new innovative uses. So I want to learn more about what you're doing with the greenhouse gas inventory there to help you get the most out of our platform with that. That's a use case we want to share with the national audience. Any questions about that before I dive into your account? I don't want to get too far ahead if there's burning questions here. If you want to put them in the chat and Danny can answer them as I go, if you got something burning right now. If not, we'll save some time at the end here. So your account subscription, you all know your communities better than I do here, but here's the list of everyone that's included in the contract. If we missed anyone, let's talk. But this gives you unlimited access to the platform for your tier for everyone who works for these communities. We will identify that by the email address. If there's questions about that, if there's a different agency or group within the given community, we'll just double check with Will. If you need access or if your staff needs access, do please reach out to Will. He's going to sort of be the gatekeeper there just to help us handle that influx of folks coming into the platform. Your subscription also comes with access for up to 10 named consultants. So if you have consultants, engineering firms on call, planning firms, doing work for your community and doing work on projects specifically for you, please give them access. You paid for this data, you paid for the subscription, save yourself some money, give that access to your consultants. You only have 10 though, so we're gonna ask a few questions about how long they're gonna be on the platform and what they're doing, just so that we're using that resource wisely there with that limited login. As I mentioned, the subscription is for 1 year. We'll have conversations throughout the year, and hopefully this is the beginning of a long and a successful relationship here, and using our platform and using the best in big data metrics.
Hey, Jeff, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah,
That 10 named consultants, can we just kind of swap it in and out? Like as we
absolutely.
need somebody and then pull 'em out?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. If you have someone from, say, WSP who needs access for a corridor study, and then that wraps up in 2 weeks, you give them access for those 2 weeks, you pull them off, and then AECOM or whatever firm is next in line, you give them access. But it's enough that it should hopefully cover, there shouldn't be any need to wait there as long as we're cycling people off appropriately.
Thanks.
So, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I was just saying, thank you. You're good.
Oh, yes.
Hi, Jeff. This is Todd Frisbee with the City of Colorado Springs.
Hey,
Can you back
Todd.
up one
Yeah.
slide, please? I don't know if I'm allowed to interrupt, but
No, please do.
I'll just do it anyway. The two questions, attorney movement counts, I see it's a new thing. Have you done any sort of validation on how accurate those are, or
Absolutely,
or
absolutely, yeah.
granular they are? Just, well, so that's one question. I'll let you answer that, and I'll ask my second question after that.
Yeah, I know you've always been able to do turning movement counts in the platform. If we were in person, I had to get a show of hands of who's actually had to go out in the field and do these manually with pen and paper. I know I have. For those of you who are a little long in the tooth, maybe you have as well. You can always do it in the platform, but we've made it so much easier, and I can't believe I ever had to do it on pen and paper. Like I think it's about 10 clicks of a mouse, and you got your turning movement count set up for a traditional intersection there. And we do have validation paper, and I'll ask Danny if you can just provide a link to that and drop that in the chat for you to find, and we can always follow up over email if not.
Okay, yeah, I just saw in the chat, Danny dropped something in there. So the other question is active transportation metrics, bike and pedestrian metrics. What do you mean by metrics? Just can you give me an overview of that?
So yeah, so that's not part of your subscription, so I don't, we're not going to turn this into, we'll save that sales call for 6 months from now. No, we have bike and ped metrics available in the platform, just like we can provide counts for and volume for all vehicles. We can also do that across multimodal needs as well. We can do it for commercial vehicles. Right now we have our what we call our Streetlight Index. So if you want to see how many people are biking on First Street compared to Second Street, you can do that. But pretty soon we're going to be updating that to actually show you bike and pedestrian volume as well on those streets.
Yeah, okay, that was part of my question, because I thought that was not part of our subscription, at least initially.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's not part right now. If there is a pressing need for that, glad to get everyone on the account updated in the future on that. If you have a pressing need ahead of that as a localized community, we'll talk offline about how to do a project-based edition of that if need be. But that's another conversation.
Okay, perfect.
And then,
thank you.
Yeah.
And then Jeff, one more, since while you're on the slide, it looks like our subscription clock has already started.
Correct.
Has the stuff been sent out to the communities about, because I wasn't aware that our clock had started yet, so I don't know if we could restart that clock to like today's presentation or something. That'd be something for you guys to chat about.
Let me look into that. Yeah, we'll chat about that. I know a few folks have already been using the platform. A few days, a few weeks here. We'll see where we end up there. Yeah, I don't want to rob anyone of valuable time for a service you're paying for. We'll talk offline about that.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. So as part of what you get with your subscription, you get our customer care. And most of this will be behind the scenes. You won't see any of this. The part you'll interact with the most is myself and with Danny, coming to you regularly with updates, with information on how the platform is growing and evolving, being more user-friendly, new data types and metric types that we have available. For the most part, though, it'll be sort of quietly behind the scenes. Our support team will be answering any questions you have. So if you get stuck setting up an analysis, they're just a quick email away, and they're very responsive and eager to tackle everything from your simple, how do I set up this turning movement count, to really diving deep into integrating your full LRS network and running a year's worth of VMT data. They tackle every project and problem you're coming at them with the same amount of eagerness. We have a help center that if you want to look up anything related to the terms we use in the platform or how to do stuff, best practices, tips and tricks, so forth, it's available there. We also have a training center, which we revamped recently, and I would strongly encourage everyone on this call who will be using the platform to please take a look at. I'll show you more about that in just a second. But we don't just give you the subscription and then sort of walk away. We understand this is a new tool, and some of it takes some getting used to, getting trained on, learning what it is capable of and how to get the most out of it. So we don't just give it to you and then walk away. We're here to support you throughout your entire journey across your subscription term here. We've set up your Insight account, so it's set up, and a few folks have already logged in and started running things. We're considering this sort of our leadership kickoff, and I'm happy to have individual conversations with communities as needed and talk with anyone about what the platform does and what you have access to as we go. I want to do a fundamentals training. So we're hoping to get a nice quorum of users logged in. So for those of you who don't have access yet and want it, or you want your staff to have it, please reach out to Will as soon as possible. And when we get a nice cohort together, we'll host a training. So we'll have time to get everyone on board there. So we'll have our training team come in and provide training specifically to you with some of the use cases that we know you'll be using it for. But again, that training center is available to you 24/7 on your own time at your own pace. We'll also be hosting office hours. So this is really something we can tailor and fit to your schedule and preferred topics. If you want to do these monthly, if you want to do these quarterlies, whatever fits best for you all, we're here whenever you need us. We can do things like offer refreshers on fundamentals of how to set up the most basic analyses, or we can take a look at how to do more complex stuff like running cut-through traffic analysis, or really doing these sort of large regional reporting metrics that a lot of NPOs are using it for. Further down the road, we'll do further outreach to users, quarterly check-ins, and make sure everyone's happy, that you're getting the most out of the platform, that we're helping you meet your needs for your projects you've identified for us. And then we take feedback very, very seriously here at Streetlight. We want to hear what's working well in the platform and where it can be improved. We are, much like every person and every agency and every company, we are a work in progress. We want to hear from our customers, which is you all, how we can make things better. So I mentioned the training center. We're gonna talk about this. You get sick of hearing it until we start seeing folks really utilizing it. It is a wonderful resource. You can do everything from very specific, fundamentals trainings to getting started, one-on-one level stuff in the platform, to very, very detailed sort of bite-sized units on how to do very specific metrics and analyses in the platform. So once you get your login, please bookmark this website and take a look at the training. You will get more out of the platform with just a minimal investment in time learning the basics here. This one's really for the managers here on the call. One thing I'd like to see is, for people to get the most out of the platform, to be the most successful in it. Some sort of tricks and tips here. You all have great staff. You're all trained on GIS, Synchro, AutoCAD, so forth, and everything you do in your transportation planning and engineering day to day. Streetlight Insights quickly becoming just as valuable as a tool for most of our customers here. But just like any tool, it takes some time to learn. Please give folks the opportunity to learn the platform, whether that's attending the training, carving out a little bit of time during the work week to do the self-paced training, allocating time for folks to run analysis and iterate. So you have unlimited zones, you have unlimited access. There's no need to not iterate here. If you run something, you said, I really wish I had volume or speed numbers for the next 3 or 4 blocks over, or I only got 3 months worth of data, wonder what a year's worth of data will look like. Simply copy that analysis and edit it as needed and rerun it. There's no harm in doing that other than staff time. So I ask the managers in the room, please give your staff time to do that. One of the great things for me is really the as I talked about in that slide, it's a representativeness there. You're no longer bound to those 48-hour tubes on select segments. And if you're trying to compare our metrics to those 48-hour tube counts, they may or may not match up. What I would suggest doing is really looking at whole months or seasons. So I know in Colorado, you got, tour season and construction season. So whatever season you were traditionally doing your counts in, look at that whole swath of time and not just bits of days or weeks in that. Look at whole seasons or even whole years there. Don't just look at a few blocks. If you're used to setting up those MyoVision cameras, look at a couple of key intersections along a larger corridor, say, by all means, set them up for all of them. All it takes is the staff time to do that. The runtime is very minimal, and it comes at no additional cost to pull that extra output there. Couple of resources for everyone. We have an active blog on our website. So anytime we have a new use case, anytime anyone across the country that's a customer uses the platform to do something really cool and really interesting and really innovative, we like to highlight it there. I can't wait to see what you all do in the platform so we can highlight it on our blog as well. I think one of the last ones I helped put up there was Columbus, Ohio used our metrics to get an infra grant, and they used it to apply for federal funding there. Got quite a bit of money for that. So take a look at that. Take a look at the blog for other interesting use cases. We have resources, demos, webinars, white papers, anything you would ever want to learn about the platform is available on our website. So do peruse our site. Let me know if you see something of interest, or if you don't see something that you want to learn more about, and I'll scrounge it up, or I'll ask around and see what folks can get back to us. Our support center, as I mentioned, is here for your help. They tackle the hardest questions day in, day out, and live for that. I mentioned the training site. So again, I'll send you this deck. Save this page, save these links, bookmark them in your web browser there so you have them at your fingertips. That's all I have today. I didn't get very specific here because I want to save that for the fundamentals training. But again, if you need access, reach out to Will. Here is my email address and Danny's email address. Do reach out to us. For those of you who already have access, if you have questions about the platform, as you do the analysis, the support center is going to be your best bet to get an immediate response. And they have a whole team waiting to respond to you. But if you need Danny or myself, do feel free to include us. And that's all I have, and I'll gladly take any questions.
Jeff, this is Dole. Quick question. I have used the software. When we log in with our account information, we'll only see our data runs, right? We won't see everyone under the same license runs or anything.
So you will see everyone on your larger regional account. So if you're just looking for Fairplays or Colorado Springs, you can sort by that, if you want to create a tag to your community for your individual agency, you can tag things and sort by that.
Okay, but when we log in, we'll see the whole accounts, data analysis and zones and stuff. So there could be 200 in there real quickly.
Oh, absolutely. I long for that day where I won't long for it very long. And by the time everyone gets access, you'll hit that pretty quickly with as many users as you have. Yeah, it doesn't. We have server space, so don't worry about that. The only thing that it may become a challenge for is if you're looking for your last analysis.
That's what I was
But
saying. That's what I'm asking about.
If you go to the analysis tab within there and you just go and start searching, typing in your email address in the call box there, it'll just bring up everything you've run.
Okay,
Or if you
that's
want to
good.
create an individual tag, you can tag yours or your teammates' work and have to call that up rather quickly.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Any questions for Jeff?
Hi,
Over
this
this
is
room.
Victoria. Sorry, Joel.
Go ahead, Victoria.
Not a question, just thank you very much. I'm really excited about starting to use this data. The training programs have been very helpful. I've watched a couple of them, just starting to get up and going on it myself, although I know my GIS people are 1,000 years ahead of me on it. So I'm glad for that, and I'm glad for my resources, especially Brian Kay at the county. And I wanted to thank you for giving us this presentation, and also ask you if you could send the presentation so that we can shoot it around our groups.
Absolutely. I'll send it over to Will today. There's a couple of appendix slides with some interesting use cases and links to some of the white papers that are more popular, and we'll get that over to you today.
Perfect. I know my managers have questions about validation, so I'm looking forward to using those resources and sending them along. So
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, terrific. Any other questions for Jeff? All right, thank you very much, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to some action items. And John, looks like you have both of them.
Okay, and just if you could put them up there to refresh my memory. The TIP process discussion. First, we have the multimodal options fund. And then the second one is the 300 TIP reprogramming. So the reason why they're sort of A and B is, and actually I probably need to take them out of order. So first is the 300,000 of TAP reprogramming. The El Paso County, I believe it was Parks and Rec, had a project that they could no longer do on schedule, and they said, we're going to return the money to the region. We first off need to commend them for doing that, because we've worked really hard over the last couple of years with Lachelle and her group and Wendy, sort of getting down our glut of projects that have rolled from year to year. And the only way to continue to work that down is to make sure it doesn't get any bigger. So we appreciate El Paso County stepping up and saying, yeah, we're not prepared to do this project. So again, when this project comes back, I really hope that the TAC looks favorably on refunding the project when it is ready to go. Because again, we want to reward this sort of behavior. I sent out an email saying, hey, we've got this 300,000 of TAP. I got one email that said, yeah, I'm fine with whatever you guys come up with. I got one email that said, we would like to apply, but we'll need more time. I had another email that says, we're ready to take the money right now. Can we just put it on the agenda? And then I had a phone call, and Sally, I'm actually going to call you guys out by name. While I change the other names to protect the innocent, I'm going to go ahead and specifically talk about our conversation. And this is where the MMOF comes into the conversation. Woodland Park has a project that is MMOF funded, and they are working diligently to get it delivered within the timeline. Remember, this first tranche, I never used the word tranche before I came to Colorado, but that's the word here. So the first tranche of this MMOF money had what came from the legislature and had a very specific deadline of July 1st or something like that of 2022 for like 75% of it. And then I believe it had another portion of it could be spent up until July 1st of 2023, right? There was these two little sort of pots, but overall the money needs to be spent. And it's not just you spend the money, but you have to be spent and obligated, because the intent of the legislature was they were just going to empty that out. And so while Woodland Park has worked very hard and diligently with CDOT and again, CDOT local governments and Lachelle and Junior and that group have been working very hard with Woodland Park to get this project moving forward. There is a NEPA requirement that was not seen before that now all of a sudden they're in a time crunch and they might not make it. So Sally's question to me was, if we lose out on the TAP funding, excuse me, the MMOF funding, should we be applying for this TAP funding? And I said, I don't know. Let me reach out to CDOT. So we asked CDOT, and I believe the last I saw was my email was then forwarded on to, oh, what's his name? MMOF guy, Michael Snow. Yeah. So, and we have not heard back from that. So the question was basically, because the MOF, can we replace it with this new MOF that came about because of SB 260? And the answer is, well, no, because they took relief funds and renamed them MMOF. So the first couple of years of MMOF that we will see around the state are going to be tainted. No offense to my federal funding partners on the line, but they are going to be tainted with federal money, and therefore they're going to be federal, and you can't match federal, and a lot of the other sort of rules that apply. And I'm just going to pull some out that could be wrong, but like Davis-Bacon and other things, right? So you're basically taking a small project that was sort of the bread and butter of MMOF, is like, hey, let's use state dollars. Let's do this small project. Let's get in, let's get out, let's get it done easy. Unfortunately, they're now going to federalize those projects that will make them a little more difficult. Wendy, am I saying something incorrect? Please correct me.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
So I'm looking in your pools and I don't see a $300,000 of funding that belongs to El Paso County. I see $300,000 in my pool, but not your pool.
Oh, okay. Victoria, can you save me? Did I state something wrong?
No, I can't save you. It very well could be state TAP. I just know that it's TAP. Unfortunately, it's not my project, so I don't know. But yeah, it could very well be Wendys TAP money.
Oh, well, then if it's Wendys TAP money, then that's a little different process, isn't it?
You don't get to reprogram it.
Right. Okay.
Well, that's not cool. Wendy, what are you going to do with that money?
Cover the hole that we have from reconciliation from the feds.
Well, this was a real quick conversation.
Well, there you have it. You're welcome, Wendy.
You don't know how much I appreciate that, but it's not going to be 100% spoken for. So it'll sit in the pool until we do the call for projects next year.
So you're saying this was a Region 2 TAP?
Right.
I think
project?
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty then. Well, my apologies, everybody.
But I have to double check just to be sure. So that's a Lachelle question. So I'll circle back with Lachelle just to be sure. And then, but I don't see anything in your pool for
Okay.
that amount.
My apologies. Wait, can I have like a 30-second recess to get the egg off my face? Is that appropriate? No, my apologies, everybody. When I got the email, I assumed it was PPACG TAP and not Region 2 TAP.
And
In
I
hindsight, I
have
should
to
have checked.
apologize as well, because had I not been busy with other things, I probably would have known that up front. So sorry.
No, that's on me. My first question should have been what flavor of TAP this was. I didn't think of that at the time. So, Mr. Chair, I think this basically ends the conversation, but as long as I've mentioned the whole MMOF thing, I think that still remains an issue that, again, I don't know if anybody else has this issue with their MMOF, the same as Woodland Park. But again, remember that first tranche has a very time-specific deadline where you have to be reimbursed by that deadline. So if anybody else is coming into issue because of the long lead time of the contracting on the front end, you need to let me know, and more importantly, let Lachelle and Wendy know. So that way, if we need to move funding around, if we have the ability to move funding around, we do that. But in the meantime, Sally, unfortunately, it looks like you continue to try to march forward with your MMOF, and hopefully you can meet the deadlines. And hopefully when we hear back from Michael, we will have the ability to maybe swap it out with other funds, because that was included in my request of CDOT. It was like, can we swap things around? Can we have other avenues of relief? And they have not responded to that. Michael Snow has not. So.
Thank you, John. This is Sally, and we will press forward tonight. City Council will hopefully approve the IGA with CDOT, and we will continue to press forward as fast as we can.
So we may have a solution to fix. So Sally, can I call you? And that way I can
Please.
get the details, and then I'll be able to know how or might we be able to move forward?
That would be wonderful, Wendy.
Okay, I'll call you.
Thank you.
John, you mentioned in your email that there was a quick timeline, which is the issue is people couldn't get an answer. Wendy mentioned there might be extra after the 300,000. There's still a quick timeline, or is timeline irrelevant and figuring out which bucket it is or isn't in more important?
So with the funding that we're talking about now, it still has a definite finite ending date. So it's not infinite. So it's going to expire. But the next round of money is coming in. And so that's available to us now technically, but we don't have all of Michael's process finished yet. They're working on the last details about match and some other things. So we'll know soon how that's going to work. And then with whatever we have left in TAP, maybe there's some way we can make this all work, including your issue as well. So let me talk to Sally, get the details, and then we'll see where we go from there, okay?
So that was a long way to say, do we have to make any decisions today, or are we
No,
going to wait
we
till
do
next
not.
month?
Wendy, would you remind us of those multimodal deadlines? I mean, that money has to be,
I think it's June of 2023, June 30th. So we have to have all the bills in by June 1st of 2023, I think is what it is.
perfect
Right?
for us. at least.
That's correct.
But I'd have to go and look to be sure, because I'm pretty sure it's 2023 though.
Okay, so that
Yes.
means that of all the member entities though that has that money, we need to be, if you're not
Correct.
tracking for
Everybody
that.
has that requirement to have
If
all
you're
those
not
bills
tracking
in.
for that, let us know and we
Correct.
can release funds to others
Correct.
potentially. So,
So there may, and if you're having an issue, there may be some way that with this next round of funding, there might be some way that we could move funding to someone who can spend it.
Yeah.
And then they take, the only caveat with the next round of funding is that it's federalized. And it's not state money, so that puts another monkey in the pot, so.
no comment.
But
Federal funding, the Brussels sprouts of money.
yes, yes. So anyway, if someone needs help, please don't hesitate, call me.
All right. thank you.
Wendy,
So-
Joel, sorry.
Go ahead, Victoria.
Wendy, double check on that. I'm showing it as being that Jackson Creek Parkway project being applied through the TIP process through PPACG.
Okay, so I didn't know that it was Jackson Creek, but I think you're right. If it's Jackson Creek, I thought it was the other El Paso County project for 300,000.
No, that's our ADA stuff. So that's different. I think it's the Jackson
Yeah,
Creek
you're
ones. that-
right. I didn't think it was Jackson Creek. I thought that that was tied to the other Jackson Creek. So you're right. You're right. It is yours.
So John, now you still have to talk about it again.
So, but
All right.
still, let me go back and let me see with Sally and with Brandy, and let's have a conversation about that moving forward. And see if there's some way we can fix Sally's project and Brandy's issue with her project, and maybe this might be a way for us to have that happen. So if you give me till next month, I can give you a definite answer.
Okay, so for those of you scoring from home, we did have an error on the play, and that was on me. So, but we're okay now. So let me go back and recap. We have El Paso County Parks and Rec returning the Jackson Creek Parkway funding. That needs to get reprogrammed. we have some different jurisdictions having different priorities. Again, one wants to sort of make claim to that money right away and apply it to their project. One was like, yeah, we might be able to do it, but we need some time to review. And then we have the Woodland Park. We may or may not, depending on what happens with MLF. And it looks like also now Fountain is also sort of tied to that. And if it were up to me, Wendy, I would say, yes, we will give you a month. But again, the PPACG, we're here to facilitate the jurisdictions process. So at this point, it would be appropriate for you all as jurisdictions to weigh in. And if one of you wanted to make the recommendation or motion that this get tabled for a month to let CDOT and Wendy work their magic, that would be appropriate. But if somebody wants to take something off the board and make a motion to move the money to one project or another, again, that's all up to you. I'm just here to facilitate the process, and I can't unilaterally do any of this. So what is the pleasure of the committee, Mr. Chair?
I would ask the committee.
Dole, I would recommend that we table this item until we get more information, give Wendy and our other CDOT partners, a month or so to work this out and bring this back next month.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion about that?
Just one last comment. At the end of the day, we can't just take federal money and give it to somebody else, do another project, but we need to know what we're dealing with first before we can even make a further call for projects, for somebody to even have the ability to apply for the funds that are there. And the fact that we may have, I have some project closures that are happening. And so those funds are coming back into the pool and so forth. So there may be a little bit more than what we're looking at here. That is, if we're going to make a call for projects, we might as well take what's left on the table and try to get it dispersed out to the need that we have. But it has to be done through a competitive process, and it has to be done according to the rules, and we can't just do a backdoor process, because Aaron's listening and he'll hang me by my feet if we don't do it right. So
we wouldn't do a backdoor process even if Aaron wasn't listening. We would never do that.
So long story short is that we just need to have some time to figure out what the issue is.
Let me ask this. Is there anybody that is going to miss, that was perhaps expecting to receive this money, that's going to miss an important deadline or some sort of a threshold if we do delay this another month? Okay, well, I think we can delay it then.
Yeah, Dole, that's 2023 money, so you've got time.
I just, Mr. Chair, Robert's rules, I believe there was a motion, it was seconded. It would be appropriate to go ahead and still have a vote.
Do you want to formalize that as a motion, Brian, or is it, he just said?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought he did.
He said I recommend.
Yes, I would like to formalize what John just said.
Okay, and we have Brandy, do you still second?
Yes, I will second.
All right, any discussion about Brian's motion to table this for a month? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. We'll table this for a month. Thank you.
This is Lachelle. If I could just chime in just for a second. Wendy, Sally, and Brandy, if you don't mind keeping us in the loop, me and my team in the loop on those conversations, that'd be great.
You bet, Lachelle. I just
Yeah, no
sent you
worries,
and Wendy
Lachelle.
an email.
Thanks.
Okay, let's move on. I'm not sure who was going to bring up the CDOT 10-year planning priority topic.
Is Shane on the line?
Yes. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Jessica, for bringing that up. I was going to ask if you guys, I didn't see it in the original packet. So this is really an informational on the 10-year plan at PPACG and status of our current projects. So I'll go through the capital projects, and then Jeff Guthrie will take it over at the transit. Thank you for waving, Jeff. He'll take it over the transit projects, and we'll definitely answer questions. Go ahead, next slide, please. There we go. So again, this is an overview of the 10-year projects and just kind of giving you guys a status report on what's going on. So For many of you that understand or know the Research and Powers Colorado 21 project is currently under construction. That interchange project came in at $38 million total. We're expecting that to be completed probably about a year and a few months from now. Next slide, please. The MAMSIP project, which many of you are very familiar with, in El Paso County partnership. Thank you, El Paso County. It's close to a $160 million project, which includes the I-25 improvements south of South Academy, including the bridges at the interchange, Colorado 94 improvements, the Charter Oaks Ranch Road, and the South Academy Boulevard improvements. I'll say that currently the I-25 pieces, as well as Colorado 94 and Charter Oaks Ranch Road, are under contract, and we're getting ready to get started in construction of each of those three pieces. We're still working through some details with El Paso County and the contractor for the South Academy Boulevard. I don't believe we have not started the negotiations with that piece of the project yet. But again, the other pieces are, you'll start seeing construction activity on I-25 with advanced warning signs going up Monday of next week, along with Colorado 94 and Charter Oaks Ranch Road followed closely behind. Next slide, please. The I-25, calling it the paving mobility from Fillmore to Garden of the Gods. It's really, in addition to that, operational improvements. We are extending the acceleration deceleration lanes between Fillmore and the Garden of the Gods, as well as replacing the bridge at Elston Road. That is currently under design. We have the construction funding identified through Senate Bill 260 and secured for Senate Bill 260. That project is anticipated to go for advertisement for construction towards the end of next summer. I'd say September-ish timeframe of calendar year 22. Again, that project is currently under design and working with Colorado Springs on some of the details of that project as well. Next slide. The I-25 ramp metering phase 2. That project was advertised recently. I would say about 2 months ago. Bids came in too high for the project. We regrouped. I believe we added some additional funding for that project in the form of Senate Bill 267 funds as well. It is currently under advertisement, and so hopefully, fingers crossed, we will have good bids on that one. That is at Baptist Road, North Gate, the North Academy, and South Woodman Road locations. Next slide, please.
While they're calling up the next slide, is that the last phase of the ramp metering, Shane?
No, right now, as far as identified within the 10-year plan, that is the last phase. But I do know we have some with our traffic group, some additional locations identified through the corridor. I could not tell you those specific locations at this time, but there will be another phase behind it.
Okay, well, we'll have to see if there is in fact another one, because back, I don't know if you heard my opening comments, but that sort of operational improvement would now fall under the greenhouse gas rule, and
Gotcha.
it might not be able to actually move forward. So
There we
before
go.
we start thinking about a phase 3, we need to chat.
Sure, absolutely. This next project is the bridge preventive maintenance for structures located on I-25, Colorado 16, and US 24. Currently under design. We're looking at advertising that project for construction probably over the winter time frame, and having that one under construction next year. That one's essentially deck rehabilitation as well as safety improvements along guardrail, et cetera. Next slide, please. Next is really looking at the 5 to 10 year plan. And so that really takes care of this first 4 years, right? It's either project under construction or prepared for construction. So the next 5 to 10 year is what's on the docket next. And we're going to have some more conversations really next month, I believe, in looking at that 1 to 4 year plan. That's a lot of the work for this piece of the slideshow will be funded through Senate Bill 260. We do not have those control numbers yet as far as how much will go to the regions or for planning purposes, but just to give you an idea of what has been planned previously for 5 through 10. Next slide. So currently under design now, it was your #1 priority, which was Powers Boulevard and Airport Road, the DDI location interchange. The design has been funded and was funded through we're calling it Senate Bill 260 year 3, but I believe that was actually Senate Bill 260. I'm sorry, we're calling it 267. I believe that was actually 260 funding. I'll have to double check on that, but that regardless, the funding for that design has come through. We are currently getting ready to get under contract with a consultant to move that design forward. We're anticipating to have that project ready and shelved and ready for advertisement in the spring of calendar year 23. Next slide. The next priority on your list of projects for years 5 through 10 was the East US 24 widening. That is from Garrett Road to Woodman Road. As far as funding for design and or construction, we do have identified some RPP that we plan to utilize for initial design purposes for fiscal year 24. That's been through the TIP here within PPACG. We'll be able to reach that funding, I believe, next summer. So we plan to start that process for designing that piece of that corridor probably late next summer, early in the fall of calendar year 22. As far as construction funding has not been identified yet for that piece of that corridor. Next slide. Similar to the US 24 East Woodman to Garrett Road, we do have funding in RPP, colored as RPP, identified for the Ridge Road overpass. This is the US 24 West over Ridge Road, part of the US 24 environmental document. We have RPP identified for initial preliminary design in fiscal year 25 through PPACG. That as well has gone through the TIP process. And so that'll give us about 1.5 to 2 years before we get rolling on that design of that piece of that project. Next slide. So this one, Jeff, I'm going to defer to you. Maybe have you circle back on this. I believe this is a missed slide or put into the wrong slide deck or piece of the slide deck. And so just a heads up, I think I'll have you come back once you start the portion of the transit project to discuss this one. So we'll go ahead into the last slide. This is the last, whoops. There we go. Thank you very much. This is the last capital improvement project identified for years 1 through 10 in the PPACG, the I-25 HOV lanes. What's identified currently is construction of the HOV lanes between Cimarron and North Nevada. Again, that is per the environmental document on I-25. I will go ahead and submit a little bit of a teaser at this point, and let you guys know that next month I'm going to come before you and make a suggestion on a slight revision on the scope of what this project would be. I believe we still want to identify and start to pursue work on I-25, but possibly not in the form of the HOV lanes. We have some parts of the environmental document still to go with between Circle and South Academy that I believe we could possibly address. That will be my recommendation, is obviously PPACG or the member entities priority and prerogative, but that will be at least a discussion point I'd like to bring up next month as far as the next priority project on I-25. With that being said, I will open it up for any questions you guys may have at this time. That is, again, the update for the years 1 through 10 priority project and PPACG capital improvement projects before we move on to the transit projects.
So Shane, I have a question, and don't have a very good batting average today. Half of the things I've said have been wrong, but I'm gonna go ahead and risk it and ask anyway. Jess, can you go back, I think 2 or 3 slides? It was this one, nope, next one more, I think. Yes, this US 24 West widening. So if it starts at Woodman, so where Woodman and 24 intersect, and then it continues to head east and north, is that within the NPO boundary?
No, it's heading, I believe it's west from Woodman is Garrett Road. It is within the PPACG boundary,
Okay.
to my understanding, yes.
So then, all right, so then the one limit is is Woodman Road, which was basically okay.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure that we were counting it in the right column.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I couldn't exactly tell you where the east boundary is for PPACG. I feel like it goes further beyond Woodman Road. I don't know.
It
if it's
does,
where
it goes,
Yeah,
it goes much farther north to Albert.
that's why. Okay. Thank you, Victoria.
And Shane, I have a quick question on your I-25 HOV lanes.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we're still gonna have that conversation next month, but as someone who for way too many years has driven I-25 and gotten off at Cimarron, I-25 is wonderful until you get to Cimarron and then it stops moving. So
Yeah.
Cimarron North is where traffic stops. And I know you want to have a completely different conversation about Circle and Academy, but I figured I'd just add that to information just anecdotally from driving around for way too many years.
Absolutely. And I think that's why the conversation needs to be had. I think there's a couple of locations really along that I-25 corridor where the congestion, I drive that piece of the corridor daily, and I agree. It gets very frustrating because you can predict exactly the location to the foot where where traffic stops. And
You're absolutely correct.
yeah, and so I get it. But I think opening up that dialogue at least, so there's a full understanding of definitely some of the concerns on the south part of I-25, pardon me, south of that location, obviously the Circle to Academy location, and really having that dialogue, at least open it up, and we'll see where it goes from there. But it truly is an entity's decision, and so we will move forward with your recommendations, but I wanted to at least interject the idea. All right. Well, thank you guys very much at this point. Jeff, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Shane. Can everybody hear me? I'll try to talk loud. So my name is Jeff Guthrie. Howdy, everyone. Sorry, I haven't introduced myself to you all in person. I work here in Region 2 with Wendy Pettit. I am the transit liaison for CDOT Region 2. Lucky me. So let's please go through these transit 1 through 4 year fact sheets. Next slide, please.
I think that's lucky us.
Lucky us. Ha ha ha. Ah, shucks. First, first and foremost, the Colorado Springs Downtown Transit Center. This is a pretty big project. It's a full design and construction of a brand new transit center downtown. Brian, please jump in and correct me if I get anything wrong or if you wish to embellish. The city is currently in negotiations with that landowner, and this money that's listed on there is, sorry, I'm trying to read this, Senate Bill 267 approved funding of $8 million for the first 4 years towards design and construction. Next slide, please. Woodman Road Mobility Hub. Let me read my chicken scratch. This is $6 million earmarked for possible relocation. From what I've been told by our Bustang operations group at Division of Transit and Rail, they and their consulting engineers are looking at the possibilities of a center median mobility hub with slip ramp access for the buses. They call it slip ramps. They're special bus egress and ingress lanes in the middle of the interstate. Next slide, please. Monument Road Park and Ride. This $500,000 is earmarked for pre-construction, as the slide right there tells you. The notes that I have from speaking with the Bustang operations, this funding is specifically for ADA improvements and possible bus access improvements. Initially, the thought was an additional I-25 center median mobility hub, but that port of entry just to the north, that proximity there, seems to preclude any of those special improvements for buses to get on and off the interstate safely. And so again, speaking with the Bustang team, it looks like this money will go towards the ADA improvements and possible actual bus access at the existing park and ride. Next slide, please. Bijou Street Storage and Maintenance Facility. I just got off the phone with the bus operations manager. This is out on East Bijou. The facility itself seems to be done. They're literally just waiting on the security cards to get into the building from IT. And more importantly, the fire marshal's approval to occupy this building. But our Bustang group is extremely excited to start using this facility to make it much easier on them and their travel times. Next slide, please. Outrider improvements, specifically at Tejon Park and Ride here at Tejon and I-25. That's $80,000 marked for also ADA access to the existing outrider stop there under the interstate bridge. And that would include most likely shelter and signage improvements. And I believe that concludes the years 1 through 4. It does. And then moving into the future, years 5 through 10, please go to the next slide. This one I will lean on Brian for, but this is Mountain Metropolitan Transit fixed route service expansion. And as our CDOT's our description says there, this is improving the service frequency. I assume it's restoring service cuts that Mountain Metro has unfortunately experienced recently, and then extending those service hours, weekday evenings and weekends.
Yeah, this is, well, actually, this is something that just came out of our 2045 regional transit plan from January of 2020. This is, as it says there, phase 1 service improvement. So this is enhancing what we already have. You know, currently we are experiencing a driver shortage and have a hard time putting the service that we're supposed to be operating out on the street. But this is aside from that. So it's just enhancing our service. Like you said, increasing frequency, having more off-peak service, and it would be quite a boost for what we're operating now.
Thank you very much. And everybody's experiencing that same driver shortage. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Mustang Mobility Hub in Fountain, exactly as it says. This is improvements to that existing park and ride. Again, possibly an I-25 center median as opposed to any other median, an I-25 median mobility hub, possibly. Meanwhile, the Mustang ops team and their design engineers have not yet entered into any kind of actual design. This is all very pre-conceptual right now. Next slide, please. And I believe this is the final out of the 5 to 10 year, this BNSF corridor purchase for multimodal facilities. Exactly as this says, this would be purchase of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe corridor through the city here to improve upon it with multimodal infrastructures that says bike ped and possibly bus rapid transit. Brian, you want to say anything? You're nodding your head.
No, that's good. I think this is primarily focusing on the part of right of way that's east of Nevada, just north of Fillmore. This is something that would be key to us having some type of bus rapid transit service on North Nevada. So this is something that's been in the mix for a while, and yeah, we're glad to see it on the list. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And then Shane, you had punted to me for a slide several slides ago about, I believe it was, I'm trying to get back to it, high capacity corridor improvements in El Paso County. I will be straightforward with the group and tell you I do not know enough to say anything about this or expand upon it. So I have to get back with you all. I apologize.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair? So, and Kathleen or Wendy, this might be more fair of a question for you, but Jeffrey, to go ahead and jump in. Back to that last one, that's an intriguing project, and especially for only a $1.1 million price tag. That seems like a steal. I'm not sure why it's in the to be done pile instead of the already done pile, but how do we do rails to trails sort of funding? This is the sort of thing that it's intended to. Is that something that's handled at a statewide level and at a competitive process, or is it moved someplace else? Because this really seems like a slam dunk. Why haven't we done it before? Sort of rails to trails application.
So any one of those projects that was ever done was done before me.
Okay.
So that means that it's been at least 20 years since the last one. With that being said, I don't know. So we would have to do some research to figure out how that would happen.
Okay.
And who would be in charge of doing something like that.
I was just curious if that was one of the things that is sort of mixed into the funding pot of the different way that CDOT does things. But I think we can be creative, Brian, and only 1.1 million for something like that that has a lot of utility, especially in that particular part of town. I would be very interested in seeing how we can find a bucket of money to make that one not necessarily tied to all of the different CDOT things, but we'll work through it.
Yeah, and adding to that, I think this is a project that's been around for quite a while. So maybe years ago, 1.1 million was accurate. I doubt that that's the case now, but this has also been something that the city's been trying to discuss and negotiate with the railroad, and I think we're all familiar with how slow that process can be. But I think the good news is I've heard recently that they've restarted those discussions, which is good, but it could be a while yet. And whether 1.1 million will take care of it, I'm not really sure. I would say no, but at least it would help.
Yeah, I think my watchword when dealing with a railroad is, we don't care, we don't have to. We've been a monopoly since 1850. So yeah. Once you said that it's still the negotiation of the railroad,
It's
that
been
makes a lot of
around for
sense.
quite a while. I think even about the time that Kathleen was traffic engineers, when that first started to become a prevalent conversation. And as far as the railroad goes, to be honest, in some of our dealings, I mean, we've had a lot more luck lately than we've had in years. So maybe some of the connections we've made in other aspects from BNSF transactions might actually aid in the ability to get something done here finally, because we have a person that we have a real telephone and they answer and it's a real person, where in the past we haven't had somebody that was a real contact. I mean, we had a phone number, but you know how that goes.
Jeff, real quick, for those transit in the median, will those access the interstate from the inside shoulders and have an acceleration lane type thing?
That's how it was explained to me.
Wow. Okay.
I think there was an illustration as CDOT was going around doing the Transportation Matters 2045 plan or whatever it was, where the parking or public access is outside the right of way, and then there's a tunnel that goes under the interstate, and then you come up and there's like a platform sort of thing. So the bus sort of pulls off. You've already paid your fare at the platform. Use that media to board, and then it's back on its way again. So the real question is not necessarily what's in the right of way, but being able to obtain the necessary right of way for the for the parking and the other thing, because you need to have that ability to safely get people across the interstate, or in this particular case, I believe under the interstate was the graphic that CDOT was using, but it certainly could be over the interstate move for there. So it's really a slick idea and kind of cool. It just, you got to overcome the operational aspects of finding the right of way.
Playing Frogger. Okay, any other comments for CDOT about that? Oh, Brian?
No, thank you, Joel. This is Brian. Shane and Jeff and Wendy and Kathleen, I just wanted to thank all of you and your CDOT folks, because these fact sheets are really helpful, really well done, really informative, and it's really great to see that. And if Jessica, you could go to the Downtown Transit Center slide. I just wanted to point out how ironic it is that there's not a red dot identified for the location of it. And there's a really good reason for that. It's all very secretive until we get an agreement with the property owner. So, monthly we're asked where the new Downtown Transit Center is going to be. So putting it on a map like this, is perfect with no red dot, but we look forward to being able to make that announcement. But thanks for all your hard work on this. It's great.
And just from the fact that it's a public document, that was understandable. I mean, it was not the I didn't realize there was a lot of work going into that at this point. If I would have known that, that would have been the first thing I would have said. Well, is this not, are negotiations to the point that we could be public with it? But anyway,
Yeah.
so neither here nor there.
Yeah. Now, we still like to say it is still going to be in downtown, so it's still going to be called a downtown transit center, and it's going to be fairly close to our existing downtown terminal. So that's what we're saying, and we're sticking to it until we can. So, thank you.
Okay, CDOT. Updates from you?
First of all, this is Kathleen Collins from CDOT, and in order to fit into the prioritization schedule for the 10-year plan, Wendy brought this to my attention that next month we'll be discussing the projects from Brandy and Sally to revise the priorities, and then eventually that will need to also go to the CAC, and then from what I understand, the board would receive information on this in December. And then the TAC and the CAC would approve what's discussed in November. And then it would go to the board for approval in January of 2022 for the list of priorities for Pikes Peak. And then Wendy just informed me that there is going to be a joint TPR meeting scheduled for January 31st for the Region 2 area. And that's going to be an important meeting, I believe, of TPR chairs and MPO reps that discuss priorities for Region 2 projects for the 10-year plan. So that's what I understand the schedule to be. And Wendy, if you have anything else to add, if I got anything wrong, please let me know.
So Kathleen ran two things together. So the Brandy and Sally issue is a separate piece of the.
I thought it was a piece of it.
No.
Okay.
So the 10-year process is what she described. The update of the 10-year list in the 2045 plan will be taking place. So next month we'll be coming back again, and we'll be doing this until January when it hits the board for the final time. And then once you make that list official in January, then we take that list to the rest of the region at the joint TPR meeting. So that's what Kathleen was trying to say.
Apologies.
So I
It's
think,
hard to figure it all out. Sometimes you have to figure out who's on first.
right. Yeah, I don't know. Third, anyhow, we need to make sure that, again, if something is going to the board, that we plan to make sure it hits the CAC committee, and therefore we have to make sure we get with Jessica McMillan and get it on the schedule. So it
Not to
sounds like,
worry, I have that all planned out. So
Okay.
honestly, it's just a matter of getting the rest of my people in the process now. So we have the schedule made, but now I have to make sure that I'm dotting the i's and crossing the t's to make sure that the right people are where they need to be in, and that I don't dump things on poor Shane at the last minute and trying to figure out who's covering that.
all right, yeah, like I said, we just need to make sure we keep Jessica McMillan in the loop to make sure she gets it on the agenda.
So this list that we just went over will go to the CAC this month, right?
I don't believe
It should
we
go.
made that request. Jessica, are you still on the line? Was that in the agenda? Because I know the agenda's already gone out.
I'm
So
still on the line, but I don't believe it's on our agenda. So,
Yeah, I didn't know to
Well-
make the request of her, so my apologies.
yeah, sorry.
I'm now under 500 on my accuracy rate, so
So-
that's on me. I didn't realize it was ready to move forward to the other committees this month.
So what this is just an update at this point. So I mean, if you,
Shane made it sound like you wanted feedback from us next
Yeah.
month.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
before.
my
That
apologies.
was
well,
my
it's an
understanding.
update, I mean, on the process, because this is what Victoria asked us to
Right.
to cover today. And then on the priorities, we need to have a conversation about that as well and be ready to do that next month. I mean, if you don't think this information needs to go to CAC, I mean,
It does need to go to CAC, but let's make sure we're clarifying. Items from today's meeting go to the CAC meeting that's next Wednesday.
Right.
So you need to be on the agenda for next Wednesday and then are you ready to?
November, December.
So
yeah.
so then you would go to the board in November?
So it'll be an information item all the way through. So it goes to TAC, CAC, and then the board as an information item. Then it comes back to TAC and CAC as discussion items to be able to finalize that list. And then the list will be acted upon by TAC, CAC, and the board by January. So your January board meeting is the final action that we need to be able to make the list for headquarters.
Okay, well, so
that we have the ability to program the money here.
so if that is the case, if you're shooting for a January board meeting, that means you can go to CAC in November. So you could miss next week's CAC meeting.
So you just want to do both pieces at one time at CAC next month?
So both the information together.
Okay.
Jessica McMillan, I shouldn't be talking for your committee. Do you have enough latitude under the I-25 update item that CDOT could include this information?
Yeah, I think we could actually include that in that CDOT information. If
See,
that's,
we're all about solutions here at PPACG. So somebody come to the next CAC meeting, which is next Wednesday, the 27th, something like that.
yes, and we've got.
I'm looking at you like, you're new here. So,
Paul Neiman is scheduled to speak right now for the general CDOT or GAP update. So
I'm sorry, Jessica, who is scheduled to speak?
Paul. I'm gonna
Paul on the
butcher his-
I-20.
Yeah.
So Shane, are you not planning to come and do that?
So there's quite a bit of discussion here in a lot of different directions. So it sounds like, Jessica, the Paul Neiman update is the GAP update, correct? He's done that many times. All right. So that's the first item. The information I provided today was, yes, just an informational on the current status of the 1 to 10 year plan within PPACG. And yes, I can be at the CAC next week as long as Jessica, can you send me an invite for my calendar for that? I'll definitely be available for that. So my plan for that meeting will be just an informational, just as what we discussed today, just a heads up on what the current status on each of these projects will be. I will not throw in the discussion at that time anything regarding I-25. It was really more of just a, hey, TAC members, heads up, this is something I want to discuss when we come around in November. So sorry about throwing that little bomb in there, but next week, my intent will be just an information on the current status of the 1 to 10 year plan.
Right. So October is information.
Yeah.
November will be action recommendation, which means if we do that in November, that means then it would then still go to the board in December, right?
You'll have plenty of time, John. just in
Yeah, I
case
was about to
anything
say,
goes wrong.
yeah, I think my batting average has now dipped below 200 and I've been optioned to the AAA farm team.
I thought you just wanted to be really ahead, but yes, or there was no CAC meeting between Christmas and January. I mean, there could be any number of reasons you suggested that.
Just keep swinging, John.
Man, I need a rain out.
I might do more damage, but I wanted to also highlight what John was talking about for the greenhouse gas rulemaking. That the public hearing is November 10th at 3 p.m. and it is virtual. The rules were revised on October 19th and posted. So you want to look at the revised rules before you submit any written comments. And then the comments, as we mentioned earlier, are due November 18th by noon. So that's all the information, and it is on CDOT's website related to greenhouse gas rulemaking. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Let's not give CDOT any more chances to talk here. Let's move on to the Tri-County Study. And John, I know you already hit on it quite a bit earlier, but let's actually go with the agenda item now.
Good afternoon, Jason O'Brien, PPACG Transportation Planner. just want to give you a quick update on the Tri-County study, so you can provide us any comments, questions, or concerns before we get too far along, and just make sure we're going the right direction. So it's been a while since we talked about this. 2019, early 2019 was the time that the project was approved and funding was approved. And just to go back a little bit into the context, I'll keep this brief, but in 2018, 2019, the PPACG board had observed that there hadn't been any really organized effort to try to help our rural member jurisdictions with transportation planning and funding. So in great part, the transportation study is really a mechanism to address that, to look at our members outside of our MPO area as well as inside. So the study is a high-level transportation study of our 3 county council of governments areas. So that's El Paso, Teller, and Park. Uses a different color of funds from our transportation improvement program and our long-range regional transportation plan. So we're able to use these funds both inside and outside of our MPO area to get our whole council of governments region. It's a study, not a plan, so it's going to be more focused on needs and assessment. It does not have to be fiscally constrained, so we're not planning on doing any kind of project prioritization process. It's not really a reason to go through that when you're not fiscally constrained and you don't need to do it. So we had an open competitive bidding process to secure a consultant to coordinate the project. That was earlier this summer, and Felsberg Holt Ulevig was the successful bidder. And we've got a great team. I believe Elliot Solsky is on the meeting remotely. He's the FHU project manager, and he may chime in if he has something to add. But we began work in June, and we're just coming to you now to get your early guidance, and then we're planning on coming back to the TAC at least once more before we ask you for your recommendation that the board adopt the study. And then I may have forgotten to tell you, Jessica, there's a short slide back there. Oh, you're on it. Okay.
You can't stumble.
I can't. I know. I'm trying.
Way over 600.
I'm trying. So we can go to the second slide now. Okay. So in a minute, we'll see there's a map just to sort of put the study in context. So it's not that there's no studies or plans happening. It's just that we work in this region of these different nested geographies. So our larger region is the TPR region. That's our CDOT planning region. And that has a study. And we've got the smallest outline you'll see is our MPO region. That's the urbanized area. And that has a plan. But there hasn't been a plan or study for the Council of Governments region, the 3 counties. So this is part of rectifying that. And as far as we can see, there's never been one. You can see from the funding formula that we have, they sort of require a multimodal focus. It's not that, as John was saying, it's not that we're excluding capacity projects, but there's a certain color of money that we're using, and we need to abide by those limitations. So we think we'll be able to reflect the need and the context for capacity projects. We just may not be able to go as far with development of those projects. And in the interest of time, I'm going to skip a few things. And we can go to the next slide. So just want to flash some of these in front of you to give you a flavor of what we're focusing on the study. And this originally came from some early stakeholder meetings we had back in 2019. We talked to the TAC, we talked to the board, we talked to some folks from our counties, and this was the direction they pointed us in. And these may change their draft. There may be some changes or additions as the study progresses, but right now this is sort of going to give you a flavor of the kinds of things that we're looking at. Geographic equity is also a priority for the study. Nobody's excluded, but again, our MPO member jurisdictions get regular attention and planning and funding from our federal funds. And we don't know exactly when there'll be another opportunity like this to do something that includes our rural member jurisdictions. So we just want to make sure we give them a good amount of attention here. And geographic equity is something our board mentions with some regularity, and this is just one mechanism for addressing that. And we go to the next slide. Currently so this is just some of the phasing in this slide, study phases. One of the things we're doing right now is a review of existing plans and studies, just because we want to be well informed. We want to know what our members' priorities are, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we're doing sort of a synergistic review of existing plans and studies. Part of what the study will do is develop projects. So there may be areas where there's a limited depth of planning capacity, and there may be some identified needs, but no particular project has been developed. So one of the things the study will do kind of more on the back end next year is develop projects to meet those needs. And we'll develop them to the point that they've got a sufficient project description and boundaries and planning level funding estimates. They'll be developed to the point that they're just about ready to be submitted for funding. So if you're a member jurisdiction that has one of these projects developed, it'll basically be ready to go. And then logically following that, we want to do a funding plan that will help our member jurisdictions identify the best and most likely funding sources. So we're not able to provide funds directly through the study like we do with our transportation improvement program, but we'd want to help do some matching of projects and funds and just take that as far along as we possibly can so that our members have the minimum amount of work to do, get their projects funded. And then last slide, just about done here. So far, just to give you a sense of our progress so far, we've had one meeting with each county, with what we're calling our core stakeholders, and that's just somebody to give us some high-level steering and guidance from a county level. And we've talked so far, we've had a great conversation with Victoria from El Paso County. We've talked to the Teller County Public Works Director and the Park County Manager. We've gotten some good high-level steering from that. And next, what we're planning on doing second half of November and early December is to have broader stakeholder meetings where more of our county and incorporated jurisdiction folks are there, along with elected officials, staff, and just other stakeholders that may be relevant to that. And that'll be one meeting for each county. We'll be there in person, but there'll also be a remote option. So the study of other plans is in progress. Talked about stakeholder meetings. Again, wrapping up, we do expect to bring this back to you, and we've got some draft materials to show you probably in the spring before we ask for your recommendation for adoption. Also we'll be talking to the CAC next week and board last week. So any comments or suggestions that you have are welcome at this point. And especially we're interested if there's any stakeholders you're aware of that may not be obvious, that we may not have reached out to yet. So we'd love to hear from you about that or anything else at this point.
Jason, this is Karen from Manitou Springs. Just one thought came to mind when Manitou Springs began our comprehensive master plan process, and we were seeking data on all kinds of topics, including roadway networks. We reached out to the Teller El Paso County E911 Authority. They have really excellent GIS data, and we kind of came up with a sort of a data swap arrangement, but they were very generous in providing that data to us.
Well, that could be helpful when we're putting together our data. And one of the things we want to do is a system map to sort of identify what is our 3-county regionally significant network, our transportation network. And, again, that won't have immediate consequences in terms of who's eligible for what kind of funding. But it would be interesting because we've never seen it. I mean, we've seen it at other layers, larger and smaller. But so anyway, the GIS data could help with that. If that's what you were suggesting.
That is exactly right. Yeah. Very, very detailed GIS data.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Any other comments?
Questions?
Okay, if I'll just finish with, if anybody thinks of, again, someone who may not be obvious that you think we should be reaching out to, then let us know. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Let's go around the room. Any other announcements that the member agencies would like to make that I haven't had a chance to do already? Jessica, I think you pulled up the Zoom meeting. It seems like there's only a handful of people left. Is that right? We've worn them out. All the baseball talk, they're like, what? I was going to say you fumbled and recovered your own fumble, but you went to baseball, so. Oh no, they're still there. Okay. Okay, any other agencies that would like to comment or something that did not get a chance to ask a question or bring something up they want to discuss?
This is Steve Westbay from the United States Air Force Academy. Do you copy?
Yes. Hi, Steve.
Hi, I'm sitting in for Amy Kelly today. I just wanted to let the group know that USOF is starting our transportation plan study for the base and the travel shed around the north part of the base. So we're looking forward to working with the team and presenting our results in the next year. Over.
Okay. Thank you.
Joel, this is Sally Riley, and if I may mention about the Woodland Park update to our comprehensive plan, has a very robust chapter dealing with transportation. And we have 4 different objectives that deal with understanding our travel patterns, continuing to implement the PPACG moving forward 2045 long-range plan, building and maintaining a complete streets network, and accommodating alternative means of transportation. So we had incredible participation from our community, and the #1 issue that continued to rise to the top was a reliever route for Highway 24. So it's going to be adopted by our planning commission next week and endorsed by city council next month.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sally. All right. Items for our future meetings that need to get added to the agenda or brought up to discuss.
Yeah, we're happy to take any suggestions, but at this point, I think at the next meeting, we'll be able to come back and let you know what we heard from the open houses on the draft tip. So that's the plan there, as well as hopefully any sort of resolution or our specific MMOF question, as well as any sort of overall statewide guidance that has been released by CDOT on the MMOF moving forward. I think the other thing that's sort of been out there, and I don't know if I'll be in a position again with the new staff next month, but in certainly coming months, we will want to have a discussion about the scoring process for project selection. I think when we did the last long range plan, a lot of folks felt like it was a black box and it was not explained well. And then when the results came out and people were like, well, what was this and how did this happen? Apparently the folks that were here before me were not as responsive. We don't need to have it be any sort of surprise. So we can definitely start having the conversation early. And we definitely can run some test projects through it, open in an open setting. So that way we can see how definitely it's constructed. So that's something that's out there. We know we cannot start the next long range plan process with the existing scoring methodology. So that's out there. I don't know when that's going to come back, but we're going to have to start sooner than later because I believe Mark Northrup has a schedule for the 2050 long range plan that gets us started in 22. So if not next month or the month after, it definitely has to be sometime before the end of the year, or even the beginning of next at a minimum, because that's not something we're going to bring to you once and be done with. That's going to be a 6-month process because again, it needs to be iterative and it needs to be transparent. The other thing that's out there is there has been discussions about project priorities. Years ago, there was projects that were sort of named and by resolution by the board as a priority project for the region. I believe it was the I-25 gap project. And there has been discussion that we should be doing something like that again with our revised priorities. I totally agree, especially now that we're going to see a new funding bill. Even if this current infrastructure bill falls apart, the upshot of it all is there will be a new surface transportation reauthorization, if not this year, next year, if not part of this, it will be its own standalone. So to make sure that this region is competitive in those, any sort of grant application processi. That priority idea is, I think, is outstanding, and as staff, we support that idea 100%. So we'll pick up the work and start having those discussions. My only recommendation is that, given the different sorts of flavors of funding, I wouldn't say that we'd only have one priority, but rather sort of a transit priority, because that's going to be from a different funding bucket, and maybe a roadway because that's a different funding bucket. And then maybe even some sort of alternate mode, for lack of a better term, sort of funding bucket. So I think we need to have that discussion. Again, I think it's a terrific idea. I can't take credit for it. It did come from the member entities. But I just wanted to make sure everybody knew it was coming. And we just have to sort of understand that maybe the very first discussion is, how do we start the discussion, and how do we frame the discussion to make sure that everybody's on board and understand what the rules of nominating projects and how the projects will be selected is going to work. So that's our future agenda items, not necessarily for next month, but in the coming months.
John, would that priority list come through the TAC and the CAC first, or would it go straight to the board?
It would be developed by the TAC. So nothing is going to leave this committee until it's what you guys want it to be. So it'll probably be 2 or 3, if not more, TAC meetings. Then once you said that these are our recommended priorities, it would go to the CAC, because that is the policy, that anything that goes to the board needs to go to the CAC first, and then it would go to the board. If the board approves it in one shot, then we're done. If the board says, well, we like the 1 and 2, why don't you go back and try again on number 3, and then we'll revisit it. But otherwise, it would start here and wouldn't leave here until you're all satisfied with it.
And then when the tip comes back next month, are we going to vote on it in November or December?
I believe you vote, I don't have everything committed to memory, but I believe in November, you just have the, here's what we saw, and from the open house, do we need any sort of corrections? And then I believe, if I remember correctly, December is when you vote on it, and then it goes to the board in January, if I remember correctly. And again, thank you, Wendy, for keeping us on schedule.
John, I just wanted to commend you on saying funding buckets 3 times in a row without messing up the letters, because it would have went pretty bad. Yeah. That was impressive.
And well, it's been a pretty brutal meeting for me,
You're
quite
above
frankly. So
500
it's amazing
as
that
far
I
as I'm
didn't mess it
concerned.
up. Yeah.
I think you've ruined that word now. Okay, John, thank you very much. All right, any other comments? Otherwise, let's adjourn this meeting. All right, thank you.